You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Hymas.
And today we are doing a trailer breakdown, a live action One Piece Netflix trailer breakdown. Travis Hymas, so what do you say? Are you with me?
I am so very much with you this time around, especially. I feel like I owe you an apology, if anything.
I thought you were going to fly away just now, like the news coup who refuses to join Luffy's crew.
What a great opening gag. What a great opening gag. No, seriously, though, much like a character who appears as a surprise at the end of this trailer, I was a bit of a cynic the last time we discussed this. We were a bit of a Kobe, just a little bit. I don't think I was too negative, but I do think I was a bit more tepid in my reaction to the teaser. But I have to say, I understand your dream now. Your will has outlasted mine. Because this looks, I can't believe it, but it looks good. It looks good.
This is a special bonus thing, so we're not going to do our usual spiel. We have a Discord. Check out the Discord links in the thing. I just want to jump right in because there's a lot to get to. First of all, yeah, I guess the general reaction when we watched this trailer definitely was sort of like okay, this is a level up, right? We're kind of going from, I think, the teaser. The teaser had it was a little rough around the edges in some ways, wasn't it? It had some questionable special effects. But I maintain from that teaser and into this trailer, the thing that I am liking the most about how Tomorrow Studios and the showrunners are handling One Piece, they're giving it a visual identity, right? It's definitely inspired. It's definitely adapting from the manga and the anime to a huge extent. But at the same time, they are giving it its own sort of stamp. I feel like I'm watching a show that has a sense of like what it is, which is supernatural, pirates, fun, high seas. There's way more stuff here in terms of the soundtrack. You can hear the Pirates of the Caribbean, like remix going on over there, not officially, but yeah, it just feels like the people who made this are having fun. They want to make their own kind of show. So that's my general thing. I mean, do you agree, disagree?
You invoke Pirates of the Caribbean, and that's exactly the vibe that I get. I get big Curse of the Black Pearl vibes from a lot of the aesthetic here, with the practical ships, with the daytime scenes. Even the jokes kind of hit in such a way, like the news coup joke at the start, especially, I think is a big kind of like fun animal gag. And honestly, to me, that's a perfect fit. People will say, "Oh, well, you can't just turn One Piece into a Disney movie," and like, sure, but from a visual perspective, it is very distinct, and it doesn't feel as uncanny as it did in the teaser trailer for me.
I don't remember if we even said this last time, but I'm glad you mentioned Disney, because if there is one kind of vibe I do get from this show, is that it does feel like something created for the Disney park resort, just in the sense that the whole world of it feels like it could exist as a theme park ride, essentially, like a place you can go to. It has that aesthetic. I think like the Baratier, for example, the way all that stuff is laid out, it's like, yeah, it feels like a real place to go visit. And that's really key, because that might sound like I'm not complimenting it. That might sound like, well, that's kind of mean, John, Travis, be nice. But no, the upside of that is that it's just not a big CGI bowl. It actually does feel like, with all the ships and the sets, it has a sense of character behind the setting, which you absolutely need for One Piece. So for this trailer, I wanted to note too, I don't know if you saw the caption that Netflix gave this, but it says, "Free yourselves, take to the seas. The journey to find the One Piece begins August 31st. Just wanted to point that out. It's like, even this early on, they're seeding a lot of main themes about One Piece in terms of freedom, a lot of the bounty posters we get. If I can throw out one issue I have with this trailer, I only had one thing. One. That's it. Only one thing. I don't love the Arlong stuff. The design, just Arlong in general. And we'll get to that, I guess. But yeah,
to your first point with the caption there, that's because they changed Gold Roger's lines. He says that for one, he says the opening narration for the, which is not how any other adaptation has ever done it. But he says that. He says, "Free yourselves, take to the seas."
Yes.
And
he first says wealth, fame, power.
Right. He does the whole, the bit, right? The setup, right? The setup for the OP, the pitch. And then he says that, and that feels, it's one of those things that like a later adaptation gets to do, right? Is they get to look forward and see, oh, this is a character who did know more than he was letting on, who did have, kind of, for all we know, he literally knew everything there was to know. So why don't we let him seed that a little bit more? Kind of reveal more about Roger as a character up front, because he kind of exists as a mythical kind of nobody for a good chunk of the early series, which was perfectly fine for the manga. It makes it a mystery, makes it kind of fun to chase his treasure. But, something like this adaptation that only has so much time to work with, it does, I think, add a little bit to him, that he's the guy who gives the full speech, the whole wealth, fame, power, I had it all instead of he had it all. I think that adds to him as a person a little bit more. So those kind of changes I do quite appreciate. The Arlong effects I actually like. I like that it looks just a little bit more off than I think we were expecting.
I just want him to be buff.
Oh, you want him to be bigger?
He looks like a pushover. I'm sorry, but look, the sword. I mean, I forget the name of his sword. It's because it has a really cool name, but I'm sorry, he just doesn't look that intimidating to me. The face is great. I love the face, the nose, the costume is pretty much there. Although I'm a little sad you can't see the sun tattoo. Maybe that's like going to happen like over the course of the fights and everything. But I don't know. He just doesn't look that intimidating to me. He looks kind of like scrawny.
I didn't think that, but I have it queued up here, so I'm going to click ahead on these shots and take a closer look at him. Now that you're pointing it out, I mean, they definitely didn't enhance his overall frame. He's not like a CGI man.
No.
Like he does. I think it's because Luffy's ripped. That's what it is the real thing. Like, Inaki is kind of stacked. Like,
that's the thing is like when he goes up to Arlong, he's like, I'm gonna kick your ass, and then I'm just like, yeah, he probably will, Arlong. I mean, I don't have that same feeling like when in the manga, it felt like Arlong was this like really like overwhelming threat. In this, he kind of just looks like a bum outside of a video store who you're trying to like walk away from because he's been harassing everybody.
I mean, that kind of treks with the vibe, though. Again, this is one of those things where the benefit of hindsight, right? Arlong was this big existential threat in the manga because he needed to be at the moment. Mm-hmm. But really, he's a bully. He's a lower on the tier gangster.
He's a
at
thug.
His best. Yeah, I mean, for lack of a better term, yeah, I mean that's kind of how he's being played off. It is notable, since you bring it up, and this is something that I've had on my radar since the moment it was announced. Knowing what we know about the Fishmen, I think it is notable that they cast a black man to play Arlong. I do think that that's intentional. I think that there is the chance we get some of this seeded, and I think that might lend itself to why they kind of have him, because his posture kind of has a little bit of a swagger to it that Arlong didn't have either.
I'll say that for sure. Yeah, I mean the themes are right there, and I don't know how much we want to. I know the last thing we said we wouldn't really be spoiling things that are really far along in the manga or anything, like just really light touches of things that happen over the course of the series. But we're not going to throw out big spoilers if you have not watched the anime or read the manga for One Piece and you're still pretty new to it. That said, we're going to be talking about One Piece as people who know this story really well. So we're not going to explain everything we say. So that's kind of the balance I think we'll have to strike here. But I hope people can listen if they are not as aware of One Piece, and we can get across why we're so excited about certain things or what certain things mean. If you're like, well, what's a GARP, right? What's a GARP? A GARP is a person who shows up in the first part of this trailer, and also a certain dragon character appears to show up in a green jacket, hoodie sort of thing, and all kinds of other Easter eggs and references. I mean, much more so than the last one. I feel like when you're watching this trailer, you really can see like tons of like characters in the background, tons of references to things. And I also wanted to point out, and just looking at the first few frames, like where we're looking at the crowds, really, really interesting to me how it looks in live action when you have like the regular people of the One Piece world wearing kind of like standard clothes. Did you really pick up on this? Like, you just kind of see people who look like they'd be hanging out at an Anthropology, but like they happen to be at the execution of Gold T. Roger. And there's a cognitive dissonance to it that I do not hate, because I think in One Piece, like in the manga and the anime, it's always been there as well, but because it's animation, it kind of has that Studio Ghibli sort of, you know, escapism vibe to it. It kind of flows a little bit better. Here, it's unmistakably like this world feels off, and I think that it serves the show. It serves the story of the show better. Would you agree with that or disagree?
I think I'm going to agree with it. I think in the larger in the larger context of the show, I think it's going to work. Like for now, it's very clear with these trailer shots that they want people like us to notice certain things, and that's not surprising. It's free advertising, right? We could do content pointing these little things out, but a part of, especially if you are somebody who hasn't read or watched One Piece, a part of what really makes this such a fascinating story over the long term is that as our main characters go from like island to island, it's like stepping onto a new planet at times. Everything from its fashion to the way they get their food, to the way that their system of government even works locally, can be radically different from location to location. And they're thinking of them as like alien worlds is, I think, an appropriate way to take this. And a shot like this is supposed to be kind of those ideas coalescing from different points. It's a melting pot effect, I think, is what it will have. As far as the costuming goes, I do think that bringing some of these fits from the manga into real life has a flattening effect on them, just a little bit. I think that's kind of unavoidable. It's easier to capture something intangible than tangible. I don't know that I'm like completely in love with Sanji's suit, for example. I think that he's got that little pinstripe shirt underneath.
Really?
I don't know. It feels, compared to some of the other costumes we've seen, it feels almost like it doesn't fit in. Like you're mentioning here in this scene, it feels a little too like, oh, he's just wearing a suit. Like he's just wearing a suit. It's a little,
yeah, he's wearing that suit. I don't see what the problem is.
I mean, he looks good. It doesn't necessarily like, I don't know. It just feels a little bit kind of glazing over comparatively. And I think everybody's going to change costumes as things go on. But as we see, it looks like we may move from arc to arc very quickly here. Particularly after Sanji joins. I
think that if I can kind of like update where the sort of like speculation I had with the teaser. So I speculated that we would be doing sort of a hybrid thing where we're taking the Buggy stuff and merging it with the Syrup Village stuff. And I think I had a gem of that correct. I think based on this trailer, it looks like that after the Captain Morgan material, from what we see in terms of like Luffy, Nami, and Zoro, like are on a not going merry ship and they get picked up by the Buggy pirates. It looks like they're going to get wrapped up into like a Buggy misadventure, and I think that's going to be like a stepping stone onto like the Usopp stuff. So I do think they are kind of merging and consolidating those arcs, because you can kind of tell that the stuff with Usopp is like on an island essentially, and the stuff with Buggy appears to be in like, I would guess like a pirate ship or some kind of, because it looks like they're in that tent, right? It doesn't look like the Buggy stuff is going to take place in its like typical location. McKenna has that one line as Zoro, right, where he's like, we're making enemies everywhere we go. So I think that they are sort of building it up as like out of the frying pan into the fire over the course of the show. And so I'm just putting it out there that I think that some of the consolidation stuff we got right. The Don Krieg character doesn't show up, and we also see that Arlong, right, kind of gets wrapped up into Baratier. What do you make of that? I forget, because I don't think we had Don Krieg on the cast list. I'll double check though.
There was a poster of Don Krieg released later after this trailer dropped, so I don't know. Like, I had mentioned to you in messages, it looks like we were just off on which villain was getting cut, but maybe
I think he has been cast.
Yeah,
you know what
cast.
I think?
There's a picture of him, so I'm not sure actually now.
I think they cut. This is my guess. I think they cut Don Krieg as a sort of villain who's going to like be the main point of an arc. I think he's still going to be a character that they use. They're probably going to use him to illustrate, like, you know, maybe he shows up for a few minutes and Mihawk kills him or something. I feel like they'll still use him in some way, but I think it's going to be way more limited because he has been cast.
And you know what? In retrospect, he's probably the least distinctive villain from a combat standpoint. He's just used lots of guns and stuff. So I see that logic. I think
Milton
I mentioned
Shore.
Last time. Yeah, I'm thinking like, you know, I mentioned I think Kuro's weaponry is cool enough to do, and it seems like they want to do it because we do get a shot of those gloves.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, Kuro. We don't see his face, but I mean, I'm so glad they're actually doing the claws the way that they need to.
Yeah, and you know, the consolidation kind of is an interesting aspect because the line that stuck out to me was similar to the one you mentioned, but it's actually the one right after that Zoro line. It's the Nami line about Luffy being hunted, which is, I mean, it can mean hundreds of things, right? It could mean he gets a bounty sooner than in the original. It could mean, I mean, Garp is here, so maybe we do a little bit of Luffy backstory a little earlier than expected.
I kind of read it honestly as like he beats like one of like Alvida or does something, and then like the pirates hear that there's like an upstart or something, and or after beating Captain Morgan, right? And that's sort of like what prompts a bunch of people to try to go hunt him, or the fact that he picks up Zoro and a pirate hunter, and that kind of like freaks people out of like, oh, here comes this rookie.
Yeah, it seems like it could be something like that, genuinely. Like, even just picking a fight with a fisherman could even do it. Like, it's one of those things where it could just be a line that they use in the trailer to make it sound more serious than it is. But I do think it's a notable thing. I will say, though, with the changes, especially in terms of structure of the arcs, you know, we know the story as this kind of delineated, you know, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, we go here, you know. Here it looks like a lot of that's getting overlapped. That makes sense. We're only dealing with 8 episodes. That's not I mean, we don't know how long they are yet, to my knowledge, but correct me if I'm wrong on that, by the way.
I think you're right that we don't know for sure.
I'm guessing an hour.
I would guess, yeah, longer than 23 minutes. I think we're probably looking at half hour to 45-minute episodes, but anybody's guess. I can do a quick little fact check.
Yeah.
One of those things that might have been recorded.
But, you know, it's not a whole lot of time. So it does seem like they've made some concessions in terms of pacing that kind of overlap some pieces of the story. So there are going to be longtime fans that are going to have a problem with that, I think. But what we've seen so far makes sense. Bringing, you know, Arlong is kind of the climax. He's kind of the, you know, for non-readers, non-watchers, he's kind of the big climax of the first big section of the story. He's kind of the bad guy, so to speak, in as much as that first saga of One Piece has a major bad guy.
And what happens afterward is the epilogue of the prologue, essentially.
Basically.
That being like this first season serves as a prologue for the entire story.
It kind of makes itself self-contained, which is, I think, a good hedging of the bet since we are dealing with Netflix here. That's worth keeping in mind. But I have to say I think it's a good idea to bring some of that stuff forward first to send the message. I think, especially since this is going to be a binge model show, to a non-anime watching audience, that this isn't just fun pirate adventures, even though it is fun pirate adventures. There is a story being told here. It is building to something. I think it's a good message to communicate sooner rather than later so that people stay on board with it.
The official reporting says that the episodes are supposed to run around 1 hour. So grain of salt, you never know what could happen. But yeah, that's a sort of indication there. We get way more Usopp in this. We get definitely more of the Straw Hat crew interacting. We see more of Nami's amazing wig. We see more Mackenyu. Mackenyu, so far, I think, is the like stealth MVP of this trailer in particular, but I feel like he could go down as like the Zorro of the live action, just in the terms of like he's the fan favorite, because there's just something about his performance in this where like I buy it, man. Like he has the whole thing where we see him, it looks like it's after his fight with Mihawk, and his like speech to Luffy, which is looks like it'll be a variation on like I won't lose again, and he's saying that he's going to be with him until the end. I mean, I don't know, Travis, I'm feeling it, and I think that it's like this character, he's just, they just get what makes Zoro cool. It's not that he just looks cool. There's so much more to Zoro than just his aesthetic. I mean that is a lot of it, but I would say the main thing that makes Zoro so cool are the times when he's not, when he kind of is that sort of vulnerable, like, you know, the shadow kind of clears and we see a piece of like who he really is. And I just think like Mackenyu just seems to get it as a performer.
Yeah, he has a. I'm loath to use the word swagger here because that's not really it. It's like
Sanji's the one with the swagger,
right? It's like a muted charisma kind of coming off of Mackenyu. So
love it. Yeah,
and I do think like I saw him in Knights of the Zodiac earlier this year, and all I could think during that entire movie is, I don't think he's cast very well for Seiya, but everything I am seeing in this movie is telling me that he is perfectly cast for Zoro. And
I forget, you saw him in the Rurouni Kenshin thing, the live action?
No, I did not watch those.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing to watch, just ethically, but like, so I don't blame you.
I mean, I don't blame anybody who did watch it either. But yeah, I heard nothing but good things about him there as well, which is, right. I'm assuming did him a lot of favors in being able to audition for this role too, honestly, because that makes sense. It would be something that Oda would have his eyes on, I would think personally, actually.
Yeah, very, very different performance. I did watch the beginnings one, and yeah, it's a completely, like watching him in this, I mean, the guy's range, I think, is what impresses me the most.
I think he's gonna pop off. Like that's my, if I have a real concern right now, it's that he's gonna pop off so hard that he can't keep doing the show, and we have a Witcher situation where like 3 seasons in they have to try to sell us on a new Zoro, and it's gonna fall apart.
Yeah, it's gonna be like Liam Hemsworth, and we're like, what? No,
but I really do. I think he has just that right kind of. Like he can deliver emotion, he can deliver kind of cool guy energy, even when he is actively not being cool. And it's a fine line to walk, because usually that comes off as cold, or devoid of emotion, not necessarily toxic, but just disaffected. Yeah, and those are cool characters, but that's not Zoro. And I think he's doing a really good job of striking that balance. Mm-hmm. I would love to see a sword in his mouth, though. I have combed over this trailer, and I do not see that.
Does he not have it? I'm not looking at it now, but does he not have it when he clashes with Mihawk?
It's very fast and blurry, so it is possible that I am not seeing it. I will cop to that. But to me, it doesn't look like it. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, does he? Are they just like? I'm trying to look at the number of swords on his hip at every scene now, and like, are they just gonna not do it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because he's got 3 swords in the cool hero shot of the 3 of them in the Marine base. Like as the shot that plays as he says, "You're my captain from now till the end." Actually, so I think they're gonna do it, but I think the way that they're gonna do it to try to mitigate the inherent silliness of it, I guess, is it's gonna be the cool thing he does, like at a pivotal moment of the series rather than the default mode, if that makes sense. Like people will ask, why do you have 3 swords? And he's going to be like, oh, you'll see. And then it won't happen for a bit.
I think I also kind of noticed that when the Arlong Park stuff, we see way more, obviously. And it looks like what they're going to be doing is they'll have the Baratier sequence. That's going to tease more Arlong and how overwhelming he is, right? And then it looks like they'll probably transition from that to like Arlong takes Nami, or Nami goes with him willingly, and that's where the betrayal happens. Like they're going to seed that betrayal there, and then they have to do something else with Baratier before going to Arlong Park and helping Nami and all that stuff. Because we see the Tangerine Fields in this. We see, I think, a version of Kokoyasu Village that is almost sort of like an encampment. There's a part, it's like minute 134 around there, where Sanji is having his little tit for tat with Zoro, like, I saved your ass, like that kind of thing. And you can kind of see in the background, I think you see a character who looks like Genzo. He's wearing like the hat. It's very blink and you'll miss it, but it looks like they're making it so that Arlong Park is like the pirates are literally occupying where these people live, and they have to live as like refugees essentially, because this takes place at night. I think that it's going to happen pretty quickly, because you can tell that when Luffy gives the hat to Nami, the iconic hat scene, the next moment when we see him going like march up to Arlong Park, it looks like it's going to be happening at dawn, right? So my guess is they're kind of streamlining a lot of the Arlong Park stuff to be like, they show up, it's nightfall, they confront Nami, next morning they go fight Arlong. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty smooth transition.
The other thing, since you're bringing that up, that I noticed is in the background of that same sequence, right at that same time code, is a shot of what looks like an amusement park stand.
Well, the whole place kind of looks like an amusement park. Well, Arlong Park looks like that, right? Like when Zoro is like running and like fighting the pirates, and Sanji's in the background fighting the fishermen. It looks like I was saying before, it looks like I'm at Universal Studios, quite honestly. Not a complaint, to be clear. But like you're talking about like the shark attack thing. Yeah,
the shark attack, and then there's another sign there, and then you could see like Arlong Park on the like draped over the building in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm formulating this as we are talking about this right now.
Arlong is Walt Disney?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
It's a carnival.
And not only is it a carnival, it's a carnival across multiple islands. So when they get caught up in the buggy stuff and it looks like a big top, that's the first time Arlong catches wind of Monkey D. Luffy.
That's a good, yeah, there you go. And I could even see it too as like Arlong Park is this thing that lures people in, and like he does like horrific things to them out of hatred of humans.
That would be a twist. Ooh.
I mean, it would be a nice edit, because I mean, what is Arlong up to really? Like in the manga, they're just kind of hanging out on that village. They're just kind of being like, oh yeah, we tax these people. It's not that dynamic, and because I don't think that's the focus. But like with live action, you can create a whole sort of like subplot there that's kind of fun. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. Like now that I'm thinking about it, there's a little bit of need to flesh out some stuff, right? Again, this is primarily going to be for an audience that doesn't have the same background. Mm-hmm. Because let's be honest, we didn't need a live action One Piece. This is for people who would otherwise not consume it. And so stuff like that, thinking about how they might change that up, is actually kind of fun. It makes it exciting.
I agree. I wanted to bring up too, we see the Going Merry being pursued by one of the marine ships, the HQ-3. And I don't think it's Garp's ship. It could be, but I think we're looking at like what'll probably be like the Loguetown stuff, like after Arlong Park. So I just wanted to point that out. We don't see Loguetown in this besides the opening scene, but I do think that like they are leaving room there where we could have like Buggy showing up again with Alvida. I mean, they could do anything, you know what I mean? And I feel like so far, like the changes they've been making I think they've been making sense. Like I haven't really seen anything where like, how could you how could you do that change? It's like, I feel like it all feels a little bit like it's like well thought out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they really sat down, and I think this was a thoughtful production. That's the vibe that I'm getting. You compare that to it's hard not to compare this to the Cowboy Bebop production, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Tomorrow Studios.
Exactly. Same studio, same, distribution. A lot of similar marketing, at least at the beginning. I would say that that's deviated now. I think because this marketing is working better, they've been able to change it up a little bit.
You know what's so funny about that? Not sorry to cut you off. Cowboy Bebop, that is a much easier anime to adapt. Let's just be real. It should be, right?
You could have done Cowboy Bebop as a movie.
Yeah.
In my opinion. If anything, that's what I would have done. I would have done a really solid Cowboy Bebop movie.
I think either works, but like just the fact that they cut so many corners, but with this is a real, I think, not that, look, making anything is hard, right? It's going to be a challenge no matter what. But I think adapting One Piece is like a challenge to the theory of 10 compared to Cowboy Bebop, in my opinion, to the point where, like, for example, Samurai Champloo. Imagine how much easier that must be to adapt compared to like this kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And to the point that I was getting at, I think the whole thing with Cowboy Bebop that they were really going for was, look how close to the anime we got all of this to look. Whereas that is not the production of One Piece's message. That's not the message that I'm getting here. Yes, a significant amount of this is full of Easter eggs and teases. There's stuff that I love to see in the background that feels like foreshadowing. I love the little detail on the back of Roger's jacket that has his original anime Jolly Roger like embossed. That stuff is perfect for me, but it has nothing to do with the actual show. It's not the thing that makes the show what they're presenting. They're like, these are characters, these are stories we're going to explore. We're going to have to change some things up, and they're making that clear from the outset. It's very clearly trying to adapt. It's the Lord of the Rings thing. The thing that makes the Lord of the Rings movies work is not how close to the books it looks. It's the thoughtfulness that pulls the spirit of the material out and transforms it using this new medium. And I feel like this One Piece, and like now that I have seen more of it, I really feel like this adaptation is trying to do a similar thing, which the Cowboy Bebop one, I'm sorry, it just doesn't. It just doesn't have that energy.
What every adaptation has to get right is that it's not that you have to evoke the exact same feeling from like reading the book / manga or watching the original, whatever it is. It's that you have to be able to fully enjoy something, or fully enjoy the adaptation without knowing anything about what it's based on. That's why those Lord of the Rings movies work. You can watch those without ever having read Tolkien's books. Now, reading them also enhances the experience in different ways, right? But yeah, with this One Piece show, the thing that has me excited is that I feel like I can recommend this to people who know nothing about One Piece, who maybe have been One Piece curious, but for whatever reason, something about the anime or the manga turns them off in terms of the character designs. It can be, I think, a barrier to entry for a lot of people in the West, particularly because it is such a peculiar style. And it's one that you kind of get used to over time. It's an acquired taste for sure. But it's one of those things where there could be so many fans of the story itself, but just so far a lot of people haven't been able to enjoy it to that extent. Earlier, I do want to apologize because I think some people probably were like, is that Chochu in the background, because he's a little upset that, the dog from Orangetown, right? He's a little upset that he's not in the trailer. Is he even going to be in the show? That is, of course, that is Chocho. Travis's dog is named Chocho. I'm going to start saying that from now on, Travis, when we hear your dog, because that's my headcanon.
He loves to do this every time I sit down to record it. I don't.
He loves One Piece. He's like he wants to be a guest. He was in One Piece. He's the dog. So.
Now I'm gonna have to figure out a way to actually interview him for this. Thank you. That's and to your point about trying to get this in the face of somebody who hasn't watched One Piece. I like to run what I call the normal person test with a lot of different things. But this in particular, and that's, I show it to people who have no idea what this is, and I ask them, what do you think? Just completely devoid of context, if at all possible. So I showed this to my mother-in-law last night because I was helping her buy Oppenheimer tickets, and
not an easy thing to do. That's for sure.
Not an easy thing to do. And so I have a discount, but so I showed her the trailer, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I would watch that. That looks pretty good." And like, perfect, mission accomplished. Like this, like Oda has said before that's like why he decided to do this, to sign on with this, was he felt like this might be the last proper good shot that he's going to get in his lifetime to be able to supervise and get this done. And if I can show this to mothers, and be like, oh, I'll find out what a One Piece is.
That is how endlessly humble Oda is, right? Eiichiro Oda created the most popular manga of all time. And even still, he just wants to bring the world together because he knows there are a lot of people who haven't engaged with the story yet. So that's sort of like humility of, he doesn't take an overwhelming amount of pride in the fact that he has created something with such a massive fan base. I think that's worth pointing out. I wanted to point out that at one point we see Luffy and Usopp at Baradier, and Luffy is eating a big thing of meat, and that's one of the main things I've been waiting to see. Also, he's drinking what's either milk or a milkshake. I want to believe it's milk because it looks milky. And Usopp is he's dressed as a pirate captain, which I'm loving because I think that they are going to lean into Usopp sort of being a I'm Captain Usopp, like that whole thing. So I just wanted to put that out there too. And also the Jolly Roger.
Yeah, Usopp.
The Straw Hat Jolly Roger. It's perfect.
That's one of those great perfect. It's one of those great perfect gags that feels. You don't even need to change it to make it work. They didn't change anything about it. And I think this is going to be a great opportunity too, because they seem to be holding my boy Usopp back. I gotta be real with you. There's not that much Usopp compared to the other characters, and I don't know if that's because screen testing is people are having trouble with Usopp or whatever, or my personal hope is they're saving the good Usopp stuff for the show. But one of the fun little early on reveals about Usopp is he's the one who actually designs the good Jolly Roger.
Yeah,
and it's kind of it's those subtle things that I think that are really going to shine through, as the show actually premieres and people get to watch it. Is they're going to learn the small stuff about these characters, not just.
We're just a little over a month away.
Yeah,
we have just a little over a month ago. Also, by the way, Goldie Roger's laugh/smile at his execution, pitch perfect. He looks evil, and that's the right way to show him, because I was a little worried about this. I was like, are they going to try to sanitize Goldie Roger? And no, I wrote about this trailer for TV Line, and I pointed out that one of the things about One Piece that is kind of underrated, I think, is that we're really following the exception pirates. They're the pirates who they're good natured, they're fun loving, but all the other pirates around them, for the most part at least, are pretty despicable. And that's kind of what's fun about the show. The show doesn't draw really clear moral lines between pirates and Marines. It's really a show about how anybody can be a good person, anybody can be a bad person. And the trick to what makes Luffy so compelling is his radar for a good person. Right. And I think that that's what makes his crew so interesting and exciting, and exploring all their backstories. And by the way, that is Garp's ship that I referenced earlier, the HQ3. I just it was hard to see in that one shot, but I found another still here where you can clearly see the Bulldog. So I don't know if that means they're going to be consolidating the smoker stuff, or if Garp's just not going to be on that ship and they're just using it. I don't know. But just wanted to clear that up.
I mean, we'll have to see.
Oh, good.
It'll be fun.
I also wanted to point out that when Sanji's fighting who is that? Kubi? I forget the guy's name. The Fishman. He's one of the Arlong pirates. The name escapes me, but yeah, the Fishmen look pretty tough when they first fight them, which I like a lot. They look pretty threatening, and I'm kind of curious. Later on, we see Sanji and Zoro actually doing well against them. So I'm curious, what has changed? Is it sort of that resolve? Is the show going to play around with how characters get stronger, kind of just through character development, or is there going to be something clear? I don't know. I want to see how they do it.
This could be an opportunity for them to again seed future things, if you know what I mean. I don't want to spoil stuff. Mm-hmm. This could be just good old fashioned power of friendship. Kind of situation. I feel it looks cool right now. They're doing the cool thing right now, But you could also make the case that like the Arlong Park scene with like Sanji and Zoro is them fighting like, you know, the lower tier guys before going up against the big fight again, like doing rematches or anything like that. I feel like because we know they're doing Mihawk, I feel like those fights are still going to be pretty tense.
I'm undecided.
They might be closer.
I'm undecided on Shanks, quite honestly. I think that we haven't seen enough of him to have a judgment, but something about the actor and the hair and the expressions, that does feel a little bit to me like, oh, that's my buddy Josh. He dressed up as Shanks for Halloween. And there's a little bit of that. And I feel a little bad to say it, but I don't know. I kind of am hoping for the best. I do appreciate that we see more of Luffy's hometown, it looks like his like home village, and we get to see kind of how the show's going to treat that. Though I maintain that this like Romance Dawn thing, I think like the whole Shanks and Luffy is going to be only a couple of scenes at most. Like I don't think it's going to take up an entire episode. I don't see how they could do that. It just does not work.
I don't think they need to. No.
But compared to Shanks, Mihawk, I mean, wow. They nailed it with Mihawk. Nailed it. I mean, he just... Look at him, Travis. Look at the sword. Look at all of it.
Our boy.
The jewels. The eyes. They've got those cursed hawk eyes. I mean, he looks like, oh yeah, you're not ready for me, dude. Like, love it. Love it.
You know, and credit where it's due. Mihawk is going to be on screen more than Shanks no matter what. So that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're actually going to see him in a meaningful fight. I don't know if I should say meaningful fight, actually. Because, I mean, with Shanks, we do see the fish again. We see more of that from the last teaser. So that's all fine. We also see Gatling gun. Luffy fighting Arlong. And, man, I know we were a little bit like, the CGI is a little bit, what are you going to do? His powers are looking tight in this scene. I think that
it does look better.
Right? They kind of nailed how ferocious he's supposed to look. And I think in Nyaki too, he is just kind of like, he's giving it. Like the expression on his face, like, talking Arlong down. I think some people were kind of like worried that he was feeling a little bit too much like a Marvel character, a little bit too like, that happened. But so far, I like how Nyaki's kind of going from like, I'm having fun, I'm going to be king of the pirates, what's up? And then with Arlong, he's like, you're going to die. Like, I love it.
It is kind of amazing. It really blows my mind how much this kid just exudes this very specific Luffy energy. Because they've made it very abundantly clear in interviews and stuff. He had no idea who this character was before he auditioned. He had no idea what One Piece was. He came to it just as blind as anybody who's going to come to it to watch it. And
I think that probably helped him, honestly.
If anything, because
then he did. If you come into the character fresh, it gives you a chance to reinvent them. I worry that like there are some people who, if you're too big of a fan of a character that you try to play, sometimes that can be a hindrance. Look at like Ryan Reynolds and Green Lantern. You know what I mean?
I don't know if you could throw that entirely at his own feet, but my go-to example is the Warcraft movie, the Duncan Jones Warcraft movie. He loved that movie. He loved Warcraft. He loved the lore and everything of that movie so much that he suffocated it. He really did.
I don't hate that movie, but I agree.
Yeah, it's not a bad movie. Just I did want to note one more thing about Shanks. Yeah. I'm unsold on his wig personally as well. The wigs could use some work, I'm gonna be honest, but I do like that the hat kind of looks like it doesn't fit him, only because the hat looks a little big on Luffy, and I think that's a great visual like transition moment where it's kind of like the hat on Luffy looks a little too big still, just a titch. But on Shanks, it was a little too small because he's going to hand it down. And like, there's no way it's the same hat from scene to scene. They probably have a couple of hats for, just for logistics. But at least that visual consistency is there. And I like that. I like that more than I think the wig is weird. I think I'm willing to forgive a lot at this point. It is. It's like that first Pirates of the Caribbean movie where, the costumes and the effects cost so much money, and Michael Eisner was trying to get this thing canceled every 6 ways to Sunday. So they script out on a couple of things. The scenes are in the daytime, so they don't have to do so much lighting and whatnot. And this has that same kind of like vibe where you had really no idea if this was going to work or not. And I love that. I love that about the whole production. I feel so much better about it than I did before.
So I want to bring up the bounty poster scene. First of all, Kobe, perfection. Casting is perfect. They let the character look wimpy, but also kind of like, I don't know, he has a whole air to him that I think is right. And they're looking at the bounty posters. I mean, of course, we have to bring up not just Alvida, but we see Cavendish, we see Foxy, we see Bellamy. It's wonderful. But I wanted to, like, okay, all of that, obviously, they're seeding characters that we don't even know if they'll ever even get close to a character like Cavendish, right? Foxy and I think Bellamy are definitely more within the realm of possibility. But I did want to just kind of point out that the bounty posters, what's really interesting to me is, like, if you really like look at the fine print, you get a sense of like how controlling the Marines are. Like, anybody could be a criminal, are you a victim of piracy? There's all kinds of like just this desperation, this sort of like paranoia that the Marines kind of inflict on people that I think is really like key to like understanding the politics of this place and why pirates would exist, to be like kind of be free from that stifling control. You know what I mean? Particularly like, oh, stop, read this, or suffer the consequences. It's very intense. If anything, I almost worry if it's going to eliminate a little bit of that gray area in terms of like characters like Garp and Kobe, who are in this for the right reasons, even if they're part of a system that needs to be abolished, if that makes sense.
I'm not so sure about that, but I will note, to your point, that the characters that they do use for these wanted posters are notably not explicitly One Piece villains. I know we just did a tier ranking, and a couple, at least one of these characters was on that tier ranking.
Well, that's because most of those characters are warlords, right? And so they wouldn't have bounty posters.
But like, you don't see an Arlong wanted poster here, right? You don't see... I guess there's a Don Krieg one flying around because that, like I said, that got tweeted out later. But like here in this shot, these are characters who are a little bit more nebulous, a little bit more kind of, they're not bad guys. Pirates as a concept is a little bit more nuanced. I think that might be more what they're going for, is making sure that delineation between like, there are pirates who do this for this, but the spirit of a pirate is still a net good thing, which again I think speaks to what I kind of am expecting to be the emotional core of the whole season, which is Luffy is a pirate for a good reason, and Arlong is a pirate for a bad reason.
Yeah.
To sum that up without spoilers.
There's also like a dark silhouetted character bounty poster next to Bellamy. And then when I first saw the character, I was like, oh, are they kind of like, it almost looks like AIM. So I won't give away any of that stuff for people who have no idea, don't want to know about stuff that happens in the manga, but obviously it's not, because pirate. But I just thought it was like a weird sort of like, oh, that looks really similar to a certain dark silhouette we've seen many times. So I just wanted to be that person who brings things up that probably don't matter. And then, Luffy, the trailer ends with Luffy being like, where's my face? It's terrible that he doesn't have his bounty yet. And of course, I think we'll probably end the season with his first bounty after beating Arlong. That's probably like how the Garp ship will come into play. So yeah, I mean, that's the trailer in a nutshell. I think, we covered a lot of it, but I think, man, it's just looking good, right?
Yeah. I'm looking at that poster, by the way. I clipped over to it, and I'm realizing it's like a parody of those like 1984 film, like We're Watching You posters, now you've got me paranoid. Now you've got me like, I mean, we know the showrunner is a weekly reader. And we didn't even talk about Buggy using Chop Chop Cannon. I love Buggy's voice. I love the really deep growl, taking it seriously. What a perfect match. Oh,
I think it's pretty good. I think, his powers are being utilized in an interesting way. Jeff Ward is really selling the character to me. I really hope he's not a one-off, and I don't think he will be, but I hope the show doesn't try to like downplay his importance in the story.
Oh, how could they? Buggy D Clown?
I don't know.
No.
I feel
There's no way. There's no way Oda let this show go to print with the plan to never put Buggy on screen again. There's literally no way.
I hear you. It's just, it's one of those things where because of the nature of the show, I know we talked about this last time with the teaser trailer, how could they really adapt the whole thing? Right? I mean, it just seems unlikely to me that they just feasibly can. It feels like the whole purpose of the show is to bring people into the story, maybe end it sometime during the Grand Line stuff, like at Alabasta, right? Maybe only do 2 or 3 seasons, and then be like, all right, if you want everything Oda has to offer, he left it all in One Piece manga, and then you have to go, the great pirate era for Netflix fans. I don't know. I'm trying to blitz together a metaphor here, and it's not working. But yeah, I don't know. I know. I don't think that's where I am right now. Do you think there's a possibility that this thing keeps going? Like, here's another thing, Travis. They could end it with like a movie or something, right? Maybe they skip past like a ton of things and they just end it years and years later. I don't know.
So
if it's popular enough,
I mean, I'm not even currently operating under the belief that we're getting more than this, because again, we're dealing with Netflix. Now, again,
yes,
it does look like this is going to be a hit for Netflix. The trailer is every trailer has trended. Every little video they've put out of the cast is trended. It's exactly what Netflix wants to see, which is people on TikTok talking about their shows. That's how as I understand it professionally, that's exactly how Netflix measures success. Well,
I'm sure there are a ton of people who are going to be getting a Netflix subscription just to watch this show, particularly people in Asia.
Sure. I was mostly just bullying Netflix, but like my faith in Netflix is very low. Not talking about this production, but just in terms of renewals, in terms of securing and maintaining a cast.
Well, especially with the writers and SAG strike, right?
Yeah, with the strikes, I am of the mind, and this is why again I feel good about the show. I feel like they don't know either right now. I feel like they put everything that they could out on the screen. Not necessarily adapting the whole story, just like everything creatively that they had in them, they put it into this so that one way or the other, there is something, right? I doubt personally that when this was all pitched, when Tomorrow Studios went to Oda and everything, I doubt that they did this with the intent of like, we're going to do 17 seasons and we're going to do the whole manga. I don't think that was a part of the conversations because, I mean, you're right. It's just not feasible right now. I do think that there's the capacity to do something like this. I think the strikes probably will have the biggest impact on whether or not that's doable, because there are questions like, do you shoot all of those young Luffy scenes and then just keep them on ice for the next 4 years until you need him again? Do you, do you seed certain characters? Do you set up things? Do you not? Ultimately it decides, what do you cut? You know what's more important to the story now than before. It's not a Harry Potter situation where you had to film everything just because you didn't know what was going to be important later. So,
and the fact that they were kids, and so they had to they couldn't wait too long,
right?
Yeah.
So I think some of these choices, like bringing in characters like Garp, are hedging bets that, hey, maybe we get to do more of this. But the reality of the situation is right now, I'm not watching this thinking, oh, this is going to pay off in Alabasta. I think the goal is to get this to be a nice, concise, closed kind of like, you could watch this and have a good time and say it was great. What a good adaptation of this saga of One Piece. And then not necessarily as okay, now go read it, but just as an artistic expression itself. And then if we're lucky enough to get more, awesome. And I think that's probably the way to do this, is to just keep with that mentality and just do the best that you can with each piece of the story that you get to do.
Yeah.
And hope for the best. I am hoping for the best. I do think, again, right now it looks like Netflix has a hit. And the big investment into anime IPs on Netflix's part is very transparently an attempt to hedge their bets against streamers like Disney Plus or Paramount, who have these big war chests of IP, right? Netflix doesn't have that. Netflix's success was predicated originally on licensing shows from this competition. So licensing these IPs like One Piece and Cowboy Bebop, and we still have a Yu Yu Hakusho series that we're going to have to see how that goes as well.
And Domestic Girlfriend, I mean, that's going to be the live action phenomenon.
Right? But, I don't think they want these to be one and dones. I don't think that's the intention of them. I think as soon as they've got one that actually hits, they're going to want to do something with that. And knowing Netflix, that'll be Buggy the Clown spin-off show immediately in production.
It'll be something. Back to back with all right, and then now we're going to do the second season of Sword Art Online.
Right. Great. That's right. I feel like that's my kind of dark vision for it, but that would also be, I think, if you were going to try to adapt more of the story, you could at least exploit Netflix's desire to always have content to be like, oh, let's do the side story about Kobe, huh? Let's just do it as a whole. I don't know, 6 episodes. We could do 6 episodes, get Garp back, get Kobe back, just knock that out, kind of like coax them into doing more if you catch my drift. But I mean this could be huge.
Got to make you wonder, the big one is Naruto. I wonder how Netflix would try to tackle something like that. Just because Naruto is something that has been completed, you could theoretically create a whole anime adaptation of it, or not an anime adaptation, a live action adaptation of it that is streamlined, that kind of fixes a lot of the issues with the manga, particularly the Sakura stuff.
What is fascinating, since you bring that up, is that for all of the things that Naruto has continued to kind of thrive in, despite being over for so long now, and I don't just mean a sequel series, I mean Naruto is still a big deal. They've never really dabbled in live action like other series. We've never had a Naruto live action adaptation, even in Japan, in the same way Bleach got one, JoJo got one. This is the first one for One Piece too. So, I mean, maybe it's possible.
It would be a tough thing to adapt, but at the same time, I don't know.
One Piece, I mean, the sky's the limit these days. With the technology and the talent. With special effects artists and set designers, I think we really are in an age where there isn't something that can't be adapted if you get the right people with the right kind of talent and skill doing their best work. And again, I really feel like that's what we're getting here. That's the vibe I have now. Maybe it'll change when I actually watch it and they do something that makes me really mad. But you know what? At the end of the day, we just got to have faith in Oda. Oda did not give the green light for this until a month ago.
Speaking of which, let's end our convo with the letter that Oda sent to us, the fan community. So this was released alongside the trailer on Friday, and I'm just going to read it out loud here. So this is from Oda. So, the live-action One Piece, the teaser and the trailer are now out, and the launch date for the show itself is set for August 31st. I'll say this, there were no compromises on this show. And then he has a little picture of Whitebeard who says, not a single scar from fleeing. And then this is Oda again. And the festivities have already begun. It's already fun seeing the flurry of reactions after each release of information. And the very fact that adapting One Piece into live action was conceived 7 years ago is wild. How will this world be brought to life? There was so much that went into it. All the efforts by the actors, the building of the world, and the costumes, presenting things in a way that can only be done in live action, the dialogue, and the entire process of so many people putting their heads together was a festivity in and of itself. After the launch, I'm sure I'll hear about some people pointing out how this character is missing, or that scene is omitted, or this bit is different from the manga, but I'm sure they'll come from a place of love, so I intend to enjoy even those comments. LOL. The story will span 8 episodes and take us up through you-know-where. And then we see Jinbei, who says, stop counting what you've lost. Very funny. And then Oda says, Even after the shoot was over, there were numerous scenes the production agreed to reshoot because I felt they weren't good enough to put out into the world. On the other hand, there were also some lines that I thought didn't feel like Luffy on paper. When I saw the filmed scenes, I went, it works when it's Iñaki performing it as Luffy. As a matter of fact, it works great. Iñaki is the actor who plays Luffy, he writes in parentheses. There were so many things that had to be done to keep things from looking too unnatural in live action. The producers and the crew are pros at live action, and frankly, they're One Piece superfans too. The more knowledgeable you are about One Piece, the more you're likely to notice the love they poured into this. It was June when we made the final decision to go ahead and launch this show. My editor, who'd worked so hard on this, actually cried as he said, it was such a long journey. LOL, not that working hard on something guarantees success, of course. By now, I just love this production team and the cast so much that I can't wait for them to get the acclaim they deserve from everyone around the world. And if by chance people have some gripes, I'll be there to receive them together. Now, whatever feeling you choose to harbor in the meantime, it's still going to be 1 month, so please have some tea while you wait. And then he shows Luffy drinking some ocha tea. Wow. Oda, man. He's the GOAT for a reason.
What a nice guy. Want to be like, hey, this might not be for you, but that's okay. I still love you, and I know you, and I know you love this. It's okay. Like to me that feels so full of confidence in the production, but also just a little bit of understanding. Just to be like, this is weird for some of us. We have our trepidations, but at the end of the day, we all just want people to. We've all been infected with the vicious make people consume One Piece disease, and now we have a new avenue to do that. And that's a win. It's a win for everyone.
How amazing he seems to imply that the final decision to launch the show was recent. I mean, it was one of those things where, when we got that teaser, that was essentially them, Oda giving the final go-ahead. And that's got to make you wonder, like, what were the negotiations like with Netflix to get Oda to agree to this? I genuinely am so fascinated by how this thing even got made, because it really is a production unlike any other.
I would love to see some of the behind the scenes on this, but I'm pretty sure the way that this went was an accountant at Netflix pulled the stats of One Piece's sales and what its overall value is as a brand identity compared to things like Pokemon, and just slid it across the desk of the guy greenlighting everything, and they just went, this is what this is worth. And they went, okay, yeah, do whatever. Yeah, we want some of that. We want as much of that as we can get. So, it's money. We live in capitalism, but I'm glad that I'm glad that Netflix was willing to be flexible exactly one time in its life.
Yeah, and I am so ready for an entire generation, maybe two, of so many new fans of One Piece who are going to watch this and be like, what happens next? And then watch the anime and then be like, this is great, but what's the manga? And then get into the manga. I think that this is going to create a ton of new fans. And that's what, as we already said, that's what Oda set out to do in the first place. It is a good business decision by Netflix because they have One Piece on their service, and it is a strategy that I think is going to bear devil fruit. So yeah,
I'm going to put this last thing into the ether before you close off. Hey Viz, just to really catch up, really catch up all of these new fans who might want to buy the manga, please reissue the box sets. I
know, right? How is that not a thing?
Like the box sets for the first two sagas are so much money now.
They're hard to get. I've been thinking about getting them in the original Japanese. Whenever that becomes, whenever I go to Japan next, which is going to be next year, that's going to be on my list.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, because I only have one volume in Japanese, and yeah. All right, we're going to be back on the main part of the show, Rookie Pirate Radio, as you know, to talk about One Piece Chapter 1088 once that officially releases tomorrow. And we're going to have that whole conversation. Definitely look forward to it. And we don't know yet for sure what we're going to do for our break week episode. And I mean, if this trailer had come out like a little bit later, we might have done that. But we might still stick with the summer anime preview. But if you want to put in your input, if you want to let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about either during this break week or any other, definitely hit us up on our email, rickypirateradio@gmail.com, or join our Discord, even better. And link to our Discord is in the server. We're always in the One Piece spoilers chat. We do have a One Piece non-spoilers chat too, if you're listening and you're like, well, I'm going to talk about One Piece, but I am not caught up on 1,088 chapters. Calm down. Well, you can find us on the One Piece is Real channel as well. We have an anime channel, comics and manga channel, whatever you like. And yeah, that'll do it for us on this little special little bonus. We'll see you back here on August 32nd. How about that? Are you going to bitch the whole thing in one day, Travis? I might.
Our coverage plans for this are still in discussion because we want to coordinate with our TV editor on InBetweenDrafts.com. So stand by.